Hello everybody, this is Some Mask Guy Plays, and surprise, I'm not gone. I am back, finally. I apologize for the long absence. If you haven't seen my community posts, basically just at my normal job, we've been short-staffed, and so I've had to take extra shifts along with extra hours, and so couldn't be honest, I barely felt like I had time to just sleep, so I hadn't been keeping up on uploading. But now I finally got some free time. Everything at work has been settled for now, so I can finally get back to playing this game. And it's kind of funny because at the time of me recording this, I've actually already 100%ed the game. Kind of. I say kind of because the skill tree that you just saw right there, I didn't fully upgrade all the abilities because there actually isn't enough bananas. After even collecting all the bananas, you would have to farm a little bit to actually fully fill out the skill tree. So I didn't do that. I might think about doing that, but as far as I'm aware, if anyone knows this for sure, please correct me in the comments, but as far as I'm aware, there's no reward for specifically filling out the skill tree. You can get quote-unquote 100% with just getting all of the collectibles. But anyway, regardless, it is kind of funny that we just, going back on it, just being like, yeah, I've fully made it through the game and went and collect all the bananas and all of these fossils and other collectibles that we'll get into later. But I just think it's funny that it's like, yeah, by the time I'm releasing episode 2, technically I've actually already, 100% of the game. But just kind of, just gives a little insight of how busy I feel like I've been. But I have a few thoughts to say, on the game and overall, and I'm gonna do a legitimate actual review on it sometime in the future, so probably expect that sometime in the future, because I think that'll be my next project that I do before I start recording any new games or anything. So I'm kind of debating if I want to let the actual playthrough finish first, because, gonna be honest, this game has a ton of content in it, and even though I didn't record me getting 100% completion, I just recorded the base game and then just a few clips of kind of reward bonuses for 100% completion. So even though I didn't fully record everything that I did, still it's a lot of hours of gameplay that we would go through. So I don't know if I'll wait that long to post my review of it, because it's like by the time I get around to editing this full playthrough, and I feel like I don't want to say the review would be what's the word I'm looking for, like outdated, or I'm trying to think what a good word for that would be. Irrelevant, maybe? Kind of what I'm getting at is just I feel like at that point like no one would really care. Is kind of what I'm getting at. But either way, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'll end up waiting that long to doing this, but you know, we'll see. I don't know, maybe I'll disappear for another like month. Hopefully not, but you know, never know, might happen. Just fingers crossed that it doesn't. But in terms of kind of, you know, how I want to do this playthrough is I'm gonna keep spoilers to a minimum. I'm gonna do my absolute best not to, you know, talk about any of like the end game stuff, just in case if there are people watching this video that this is kind of, you know, their beginning exposure to the game, or they haven't gotten that far into it, or whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna try and keep spoilers to the minimum and not, you know, basically talk about all the stuff that goes on in the mid and late game. But I'll try and just commentate more on the areas themselves that I'm in at the time, and my thoughts on just the things that are, you know, I guess going on in the present in terms of the video. So that's my plan. And other than that, I think I'll just kind of be, you know, talking positive, negatives overall, I feel like, about the game. I will say that after doing 100% completion, I can imagine just how weird it would feel to go back to ground zero, if you know what I mean. Because especially with the skill tree, I mean, you kind of get used to having all of your abilities, and it's like, yeah, you know, you know, in some sense of like the word, it's like you do still have a lot of the, like, the game still, you know, kind of plays the same, and yeah, it gets harder, you know, as time goes on. So, but it's just kind of weird to, you know, go back to being like, you know, not having a bunch of power and having less health, as well as, like, it's weird from my perspective of watching this back, like, and commentating over it, because I can clearly see me having, like, struggling a little bit to, you know, manage all the controls and everything. And I'm gonna be honest, after all the hours I put into the game at this point, I feel like, and especially with it being, like, very recent that I 100%ed it, I just, you know, the movement's kind of just like in my head. It's like muscle memory a little bit. So it's kind of weird going back to me, you know, watching me kind of bang my head against the wall a little bit on some of these things. Like, how do I do these things? So it is very interesting. And I will say, it makes me wonder what they would do, you know, kind of like, where do we go from this type of mindset, because, you know, it's like, I think the popular opinion, for the most part, that at least I've seen, is that everyone is a big fan of this game. You know, little spoiler, myself included, you know, I would rank this game highly. However, at the same time, it definitely has some flaws. I feel like there are a few disappointments, and, you know, it's not exactly maybe what I would have hoped / expected for the next Donkey Kong game series. And I think especially what I mean on that is, you know, I know opinions are a little bit mixed, but in my opinion, I actually do enjoy Donkey Kong 64 a ton. And, you know, when it was like, oh, you know, whenever they release a new Donkey Kong game, my hope was that, you know, it'd be something more similar to that than compared to, like, if they did another country game, for example, because, like, I really like Tropical Freeze, and I also really like Returns. So I think they're both great games, but you're kind of just looking at it like, dang, you know, it's like we had 64 and it really is standing out as, like, you know, just the one of its kind at the moment. And, you know, kind of are just sitting there thinking, it's like, if, you know, if they were to do another Donkey Kong game in, like, this kind of style, you know, that'd be really interesting, and you kind of just, you know, wonder what it would be like. Whereas the game that we got with Bananza, I'm, like, really happy with it, but it, in a weird way, you know, just has that feeling of, you know, it's way more Mario Odyssey feeling than, like, Donkey Kong 64 feeling. If that makes, if, you know, my ramble makes sense at all. Of me basically just being like, I wonder, you know, where they're gonna go from here, because I wonder if, you know, kind of the mindset of the Donkey Kong formula for a while was just like, you know, if they deviated from the Donkey Kong Country style, if people would like it. And I feel like after this game, it kind of gives the impression that it was like, yeah, I mean, you know, people are all for changing up the formula when it comes to the Donkey Kong series. So it makes me wonder if they'll, kind of what they'll do next with the series, so I'm like, I guess only time will tell. Because I'm like, trying to think. It's been a long time since Tropical Freeze compared to Bananza, right? Because Tropical Freeze came out on the Wii U, and then, like, yeah, we got the port of Tropical Freeze, but I wouldn't necessarily call that, like, a new game per se. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of just a remake of an existing game, so I don't know if I necessarily call that like a new game. So, but yeah, when I think about it, it was like, I mean, essentially, you know, Wii U lifespan, completely skipping Switch 1 lifespan and going to Switch 2 lifespan in order to get a new Donkey Kong game. So I'm like, that's just crazy to me. So it's like, you know, definitely glad to see the series back, but it's like, the next time we get anything Donkey Kong related, it's like, probably shouldn't expect anything for at least like another like 5 years or so, but you never know. They could, Nintendo could surprise us, but I'm like, I wouldn't get my hopes up, but I am curious on like where they would go. But something that I do really like about this game is, I mean, just the areas just look, like, I think they just look really good. And for the most part, they're pretty fun to roam around in. I feel like there are a few exceptions to that. You know, I didn't love every area in the game, and I mean, there's you know, a good chunk of them. So, like, I feel like there's just bound to be one that I didn't like, but I'll probably get into more detail on that whenever I do finally do that review video. But I think this is a really great, like, first legitimate area, because in my like, for me, I feel like I believe Ingot Isle is what it's called. I believe that's what the area is called. I kind of just feel like when I think of it, it's like, you know, it's like a prologue type deal. You know, it's intro compared to like this, you know, feeling like the first legitimate area. And I feel like, especially, you know, in a little bit too, there's, like, you know, some specific things that I think really make it feel like the first area in terms of, you know, adding new mechanics. So I feel like they did such a good job with it. I thought this area was so fun to just roam around in, because I mentioned in the first episode, and it still kind of holds true, when I was first going through Ingot Isle, I was a bit worried, because I was sitting there thinking, and I'm like, you know, I wonder if this, you know, punching around and having to dig through the ground and everything mechanic is gonna get old too quickly. Because honestly, by the time of I was getting to the end of, like, Ingot Isle, I just had the feeling of, you know, just being like getting a little bored with it, and I was like, oh no, you know, I'm just starting and I'm already feeling bored with it. I'm like, I'm so, you know, worried about the state of this game, but no. I'm like, as soon as I got to this area, I'm gonna be honest, it completely drew me back in, and I was like, alright, nope, I'm here for it. Yeah, I'm back. So, you know, there's a lot of props that, you know, I'll give to the team of literally being like, no, they did such a good job with this area. It's not my favorite in the game, but I'm like, it really just, you know, not to make a, you know, funny, ironic pun because of all the fishing stuff in the area, but it really reeled me in. It really did. I also gotta say that just exploring just feels so nice to do in this game, especially later on too. Like, once abilities, you start getting so many abilities too. It's just so cool. Like, you can literally make terrain, you know, feel like a joke at times. That's just so crazy to me. Also, I will say that for this series, kind of what I'm aiming for is like video length of around 25 to 30 minutes, somewhere in between there. Just because, I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of footage to go through. So I feel like the video length, it's gotta be a little longer, otherwise I'm like, this series is never getting edited and everything. But the hardest part about it being like so open world and stuff like this, for like me editing it, is it's so hard for me to decide when to cut stuff out. You know what I mean? Because it's like me wandering around and like struggling to find something for 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, that one would be super entertaining, at least in my opinion, to watch. But at the same time, it's like kind of a big point of this game, you know, is to explore a bunch and to kind of, you know, bang your head against the wall a little bit until you find solutions to things and find, you know, where stuff is and where you need to be going. So I feel like it'll be a little difficult for me to, you know, decide. It's like, okay, how do I want to edit this? So I don't know, if you guys have any comments on that, you know, let me know. If it's just like I'm editing too much stuff, not editing enough, you know, you'll just have to let me know. And I'll try to accommodate in whatever way I can. But kind of a little off topic. I feel like off topic of Donkey Kong, at least, is I'm kind of curious what everyone would like to see from the Switch 2, because I feel like at the moment, you know, we don't really have a ton to show for the Switch 2 just yet, because, you know, just came out. All we got is Mario Kart and Bananza, and I'm like, we have a few things that we know, you know, are coming up, but it's like in terms of, you know, mainline series stuff, I feel like there's still a lot that we don't know. So I'm kind of interested, you know, what things would you guys want to see? Because it's like, for example, for me, I'm like, I'm one of those people that would really enjoy to see a Fire Emblem remake on either 4 or 5. I think both. You know, there's an argument to be made for both. But it's such a weird feeling, because that's also one of those that, you know, I feel like you hear their rumors so often of just like, oh, they're working on one, you know, it's gonna get announced soon, and all this stuff, and like, I don't pay much attention to the rumors, especially regarding games and stuff, because I'm gonna be honest, I just feel like, especially after the Smash Bros. Ultimate era, holy cow, just listening to like videos of, you know, being like, oh, this character's gonna be added in the Smash, or this character's confirmed according to the leaks and stuff. I'm gonna be honest, I'm like, after that whole era, I was just like, nah, I'm done. I'm done listening to all these, you know, quote-unquote leaks, and, you know, my uncle works at Nintendo, and he knows blah 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 blah. So I'm like, after that whole era of thing, it really just burnt me out. So I don't pay attention much to leaks or stuff anymore. I'm just like, I believe it when I see it type of deal in terms of thing. But I feel like content creators that I watch, like every now and then they'll bring up, it's just like, huh, well, you know, I wonder if, you know, if this thing is happening in It's like, I don't know, maybe it is. But I do think it would be cool to finally get a remake on those old games. Because it's just, it's so weird, because you have, like, you know, the new Fire Emblems that I feel like are drawing in a ton of new people to the series, because I think, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Three Houses was like the most popular Fire Emblem game to date. And it's funny, I actually know someone who never played a Fire Emblem game before, but bought Three Houses and has beaten it like 9-10 times already, and it's one of their favorite games. So I'm like, I feel like it was a lot of people's, you know, introductions to the series, but a lot of people love the newer games. But you also have the people on the side of you know, really missing like the older game style. And it's like, the first Fire Emblem game I played was Sacred Stones on Game Boy, so and so it's like, I've really enjoyed the series ever since, and I've kind of kept up with it a little bit. It's like, I'd say probably within the past more like 5 years or so is really when I've been taking a lot of time to go back and play some of the older games that I've missed and I've enjoyed. Honestly, I have enjoyed a good amount of them. I feel like, yeah, there's some gimmicks that, and some design choices that honestly can be frustrating, but that's not necessarily excluded from, you know, the newer games either. So I would really like to see the older fans shown some love in the community, but I think right now that's kind of like the biggest thing that I would hope for in terms of things coming out on the Switch 2. But yeah, you guys will have to let me know. It's like, are there any games that haven't been announced yet that you would be interested in seeing on the Switch 2? Because I mean, there's a ton of series, you know, Nintendo and non-Nintendo made series that I feel like could just be coming out with so many new things soon. So I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on games. I think these cranky rants are kind of funny, that, you know, he'll be a reoccurring thing, and it's really funny to just find him. The only thing I have an issue with Cranky is, or I guess the only issue I have with Cranky is pretty much just that I feel like he always just says the same thing. And it kind of gets old really quick. So I feel like at some point you'll just see me start mashing. But that'll be all for this episode. Have a good one.